All right, thanks for joining us on Morning Rush. I'm Lindsay Tuckman. Let's head over now to Veronica with Scripps News Live. I guess we're twinning today.
We are. Yes, I like your yellow.
It's like your yellow.
Lindsay, have a great day. Thanks.
Thanks.
Of course, all eyes right now on Capitol Hill, where the House is expected to vote on a bipartisan bill to raise the debt limit. But rarely are things in Washington simple. Reaching a deal on the debt limit was one challenge, but getting lawmakers to support it, well, that's another.
The president and his team are having conversation with Democratic members. That includes more than 100 one-on-one calls with members of Congress.
I've talked to many about whether they're for or against the bill. I'm not sure what in the bill people are concerned about.
A close call in the sky caught on camera. And the U.S. military is saying this was no accident. Why it's now accusing China of unnecessary and aggressive behavior. And hundreds of the country's top spellers are ready to flex their mental muscles so they can WIN.
I think it's just so amazing. Like, I would have never expected to make it to nationals. But yeah, I'm really excited.
Inside the preparations for tonight's Scripps National Spelling Bee semifinals. Scripps News Live begins right now. Well, it was just 4 days ago now that President Biden and Speaker Kevin McCarthy announced that they had reached a deal to raise the debt ceiling after weeks of tense negotiations. So we're good, right? Does this mean that the U.S. is no longer at risk for a potentially disastrous default? Well, not exactly. We're going to talk about it. Welcome to your Wednesday edition of Scripps News Live. Always good to see you. I'm Veronica Cruz. So the fate of that deal, which President Biden says was agreed upon in, quote, good faith, now lies in the hands of the Republican-led House, which will take up a vote on the bill today. And though the president and House Speaker are both insisting that the bill will pass, it's probably best to not hold your breath quite yet.
This was a mistake. We abandoned the structure that was making us successful, so we're going to have to rethink it all.
We're the U.S. government. We're supposed to take care of the most vulnerable people.
I mean, how much confidence do you have in the speaker right now?
None. Zero. What basis is there for confidence?
I'm still undecided. I mean, I'm angry that we are being held hostage, and we are continuing to be held hostage because we do not have a choice.
Scripps News national political correspondent Kevin Sterling live for us on Capitol Hill. All right, Kevin, we've been hearing from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. It sounds like they're really frustrated by what's in this bill. And it really feels like we're inching towards that finish line. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. What more can you tell us from your vantage point right now?
Hey, Veronica. So earlier this morning, I spoke with 2 sources who confirmed to me that the bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus has voted to endorse this bill that House Speaker Kevin McCarthy brokered with President Biden to raise the nation's debt ceiling. 64 members that are backing this piece of legislation. This comes as the Rules Committee last night just narrowly by 1 vote on a 7-6 margin advanced this legislation to the House floor, where it will likely receive a vote sometime this evening, maybe around 8 p.m. New York time on the House floor. And then if it gets out of the House, as it is expected to do, then it would go to the Senate, of course. But I also spoke with sources, Veronica, in the Freedom Caucus, who have really come out and criticized Speaker McCarthy. And the biggest unknown right now is going to be whether or not there are actually more Democrats who back the Republican Speaker of the House, Speaker McCarthy, in advancing this legislation versus Freedom Caucus members. And that really could put Speaker McCarthy's job on the line.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has put the fate of his speakership in question, as hardline conservatives in his caucus are now privately discussing ousting him as Speaker. The conversations come as the House is set to vote on a bipartisan deal McCarthy brokered with President Biden to raise the nation's debt ceiling just days before a possible default. At least 2 members of the conservative House Freedom Caucus privately discussed filing a motion to vacate McCarthy as Speaker during a Freedom Caucus phone call on Monday evening, according to a source on the call. And Freedom Caucus Chairman Scott Perry declined to address whether his caucus would move to oust McCarthy.
I am focused on defeating this bill. What happens post that and the agreements that we have, we will decide once we've determined the disposition of this bill and its finality.
McCarthy brokered a deal with the Freedom Caucus when Republicans elected him Speaker in January, after 15 rounds of voting. And one of the concessions he made, lowering the threshold to just one single motion to vacate needed in order to begin proceedings to remove a House Speaker. And if that motion to vacate gets filed, only a simple majority, 218 votes, are needed to remove the Speaker. On Tuesday, Freedom Caucus members took to the airwaves with a warning.
I think he even has a majority of his own conference at this point.
If a majority of Republicans are against a piece of legislation and you use Democrats to pass it, that would immediately be a black letter violation of the deal we had with McCarthy to allow his ascent to the speakership, and it would likely trigger an immediate motion to vacate.
Kevin, we trusted him, but to surrender most every point that in the bill makes no sense.
So right there you have it, Speaker McCarthy getting a lot of criticism from the right flank of his caucus, but he maintains that he feels this bill is going to get out of the House, and he's still defending it and saying that he was able to get some cuts to President Biden's government spending.
All right, Kevin, I have 30 seconds with you. So you're saying that the House will pass this bill, but the question, will it clear the Senate?
Well, that's another unknown variable, but it likely will, based on the sources that I'm talking with, which puts it on President Biden's desk just around June 5th, that ex-date deadline.
All right, Kevin's really live for us on Capitol Hill. Kevin, always appreciate it. Thank you. So all of that turmoil in Washington right now has been making for very turbulent trading today on Wall Street. Want to give you a quick peek of the numbers. Markets right now are deep into the red halfway through the trading day. Lots of red on the board right now. Investors obviously awaiting the results of today's vote in Washington. But all three indices are in the red at this hour. Dow Jones is down about 253 points. The S&P down 33, and the NASDAQ is down almost 100 points. We're going to keep an eye on it for you. So the pessimism on Wall Street in the meantime is understandable, particularly when you consider that a default would be a disaster for Wall Street and the markets. Moody Analytics predicting that the markets the Treasury depends on to pay bills would go into free fall first, and then mortgage and short-term funding markets would soon follow. Credit rating giant Fitch is warning that the country's credit rating would be downgraded right away. Right now, the U.S. has a top credit ranking, but it's been placed on a watch list as financial firms await the results of today's vote. And experts are warning that even a short default lasting just a few days could lead to an immediate plunge in equity prices and a huge spike in interest rates. So higher interest rates aren't in anyone's best interest, and certainly not for Americans who are carrying significant credit card debt. And if the latest data is to be believed, it's a very large chunk of this country's population. According to Bankrate, nearly half of all cardholders in the United States are carrying debt month to month. And altogether, we owe close to $1 trillion. Scripps News national correspondent James Packard takes a closer look at what's behind all this spending and all that debt.
As Her Majesty Shania Twain once said,
"We created us a credit card mess. We spend the money that we don't possess."
Relevant then, almost painfully relevant now. We have on our hands a mess, indeed. Americans are carrying more credit card debt than ever before. Our outstanding bills totaling about $1 trillion. Since June 2000, our debt has skyrocketed. But in the last 2 years alone, the Federal Reserve reports it's climbed $250 billion.
Right now, I'm assessing every single thing that requires any kind of money from me. And I'm saying, what is the best thing for me and my family moving forward?
Anthony O'Neill is a finance expert. His number one tip for getting credit card debt under control seems obvious, but it's easier said than done. Stop unnecessary spending.
Unnecessary things are like extra apps. You don't need Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime. And for us single people, we don't need to be going on dates every single weekend. So let's get focused on the budget.
Stopping the bleeding is one thing, but mending the wound is another. The average credit card interest rate sits at about 20%, according to the Federal Reserve. That's up 4% from this time last year. And new cards are racking up 24% interest. That's a hard hole to dig out of with a lot on the line if you don't make the payments.
The more delinquent you are, the worse it gets. And then your card's probably going to get closed.
Scripps News Detroit spoke with Kristen Holt, the CEO of a company that helps navigate people out of credit card debt.
A late payment can stay on your credit report for 7 years.
7 years.
Yes.
It eats at you.
Matt Solomon knows that stress too well. He had $60,000 in credit card debt in 2017. He reached out to a debt counseling service that helped him consolidate his debt and organize a budget.
My debt management plan right now is a single monthly payment of $1031.
In 2 years, he could have it all paid off.
I don't have to worry about, when is this credit card due? When is this due? And it just feels, it's such an accomplishment.
And a reminder to the millions carrying credit card balances each month, there are ways to try to manage your way out of it, little by little. James Packard, Scripps News, Los Angeles.
Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, the United Nations imposing new rules that could help avert a disaster at Europe's largest nuclear power plant in Ukraine. Also, North Korea's attempt to launch a spy satellite fails but succeeds in enraging its neighbors. And the U.S. is accusing China of bad behavior in the skies above the South China Sea. Why this caught-on-camera encounter is being denounced as unnecessary. That's next.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. Get what you're worth at worthy.com.
A better banking app is right at your fingertips. Download Dave and you can get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. No interest, no credit checks, no late fees. You can even earn more money with a side hustle or manage and spend your cash with the Dave debit card. There's no overdraft fees and no minimum balance. Ditch the big banks and get up to $500 instantly. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com today.
Raising children means you need support. Kizik's are the truly hands-free shoe that can handle anything mothering throws at you.
Where did you get that chainsaw?
Amazon? Oh, it's time to upgrade to the original hands-free smart shoe. Free shipping, free returns, free the whales. Can get your own Kizik's today.
Confused by all the Camp Lejeune toxic water commercials? Let me answer some of your questions.
Are claims filed against the U.S. Marine Corps?
No, the U.S. government has set aside billions of dollars for those who have suffered. The Marine Corps will not be impacted.
Will a Camp Lejeune claim affect my VA benefits?
No. According to the VA, your right to VA benefits will remain intact. If you have questions about a Camp Lejeune claim, call the Driscoll firm now for a free consultation. 1-800-273-4800.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, or photos that are degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe, with over 1 million satisfied customers. Visit legacybox.com.
I had to replace my engine. The bill would have been over $4,000, but my Endurance Auto Protection Plan covered it all.
A broken AC unit costs over $1,800, a transmission over $3,000, and an engine over $4,000. Breakdowns used to mean paying thousands out of pocket, until now. Go to EnduranceWarranty.com or call Endurance today and stop paying for expensive auto repairs. Call 877-204-1467 or visit EnduranceWarranty.com for a free quote.
Scripps News investigates stolen orphans in Ukraine. Jason Bellini takes you through a year of following this story, meeting Dennis, a Ukrainian orphan, at the start of the war, then forcibly kidnapped by Russian forces. Now, the desperate attempts to bring him home.
If we will not rescue him, he will die as a Russian soldier.
Scripps News investigates the stolen orphan. Thursday night at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News Tonight.
Unnecessary and aggressive. That's how the U.S. military has been describing a mid-air incident involving a Chinese fighter jet and an American reconnaissance aircraft. U.S. Indo-Pacific Command released video of the incident captured over the South China Sea, which it says shows the Chinese jet flying directly in front of the American plane's nose. The American pilot then had to navigate the turbulent wake the fighter jet left behind. This incident has been heightening tensions between both countries at a time when American support for Taiwan has been rankling Beijing. Now, further adding to that tension, China is saying that its defense minister will not meet with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin at a security conference in Singapore over the weekend. The Pentagon is saying China's decision to refuse the meeting shows, quote, unwillingness to engage in meaningful military-to-military discussion. Now, North Korea's attempt to send a spy satellite into orbit has failed, but it did succeed in angering neighboring South Korea and Japan. Warning sirens blared after things went awry. North Korea says the satellite lost power after the first and second stages separated. North Korea is saying it would try again after determining what went wrong. Now, the launch was a violation of United Nations resolutions that ban North Korea from any launch based on ballistic technology. Take a look at this. These are images of what's believed to be debris from that satellite found floating in the water off the coast. The launch violated United Nations resolutions that ban North Korea again from launching any type of ballistic technology. Let's talk about the IAEA, which has imposed new rules that it hopes will avert a nuclear catastrophe now. In Ukraine, at Zaporizhia's power plant. It is the largest nuclear plant in Europe, and Russia has taken over the facility. It's forcing Ukrainian workers to keep it operational. The director of the UN's Nuclear Energy Agency is saying that he is amazed that there hasn't been a nuclear catastrophe already. His 5-point plan is urging Russia and Ukraine not to attack the plant. It also says the plant shouldn't be used as a base for military equipment or personnel. In the meantime, the U.S. is about to send another $300 million aid package to Ukraine, and it's going to include weaponry that can be used with drones. Also included are munitions that can be launched with Patriot missiles and the high-mobility artillery rocket system. The U.S. authorizing more than $37 billion in weapons and equipment to Ukraine since Russian troops invaded the country. And it all comes after Ukraine turned the tables on Moscow. Ukraine launching a drone attack that caused light damage in Moscow neighborhoods. Russian President Vladimir Putin calling the drone attack, quote, a terrorist act. Correspondent Jason Bellini has more now on the latest round of drone strikes.
Russian authorities say 8 drones targeted Moscow early Tuesday. It's the first time the war has reached civilians in the Russian capital. Several residential buildings had minor damage and residents were evacuated. Witnesses described hearing a propeller sound, then a loud bang. Shattered windows and scorch marks could be seen on buildings. This comes just weeks after explosions over the Kremlin raised questions about Russia's air defenses.
Kyiv chose the path of intimidation of Russian citizens and attacks on residential buildings. It is a clear sign of terrorist activity. The Moscow air defense system worked satisfactorily. However, there is still work to be done to make it better.
In an audio message, the leader of the Wagner Group, a Russian paramilitary organization, angrily accused the Russian Defense Ministry of not doing enough to prevent the attack. An advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Kyiv was not directly involved, but was happy to watch. There's been no let-up in Russia's bombardment of Ukraine's capital. The attacks have been going on for weeks, forcing exhausted residents to seek shelter wherever they can.
Actually, in May, we have a lot of attacks to our city, not just to capital of Ukraine, also in other cities, and a lot of people killed from Russian terrorists. It's terrorism. It's not a war.
The latest pre-dawn raid on Kyiv killed at least 1 person and injured 11 others as tensions build ahead of an expected Ukrainian counteroffensive. Jason Bellini, Scripps News.
And still to come on Scripps News Live, another big Republican name ready to launch a presidential bid. What we know right now about former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie's 2024 plans. That's straight ahead. Also, the chair of the House Oversight Committee is saying that he wants FBI Director Christopher Wray held in contempt of Congress. We'll explain why next.
This is an important message from USA Family Protection. You may now be eligible for up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, starting at less than $1 a day.
Mom, it's so great to see you.
Oh, you too, son. And I have to tell you, I've been thinking about the future, and it's really important to me that I don't leave you and your sister with my debts, especially the cost of my funeral and other final expenses, which can be more than $9,000.
Yeah, that would be really hard on us.
Well, I called USA Family Protection, and with one phone call, I was eligible for $50,000 for my funeral and final expenses.
But what about your health issues? Don't they require a medical exam?
That's the best part. There's no medical exam, just a few quick questions, and I was able to get coverage right over the phone. Plus, my rates can never be increased, my benefits can never be decreased, and my coverage can never be canceled.
That's really great, Mom. But can you afford it?
Yes. Rates start at less than $1 a day, and when the time comes, payout to you and your sister happens in as little as a few days. I am so happy to know you two are taken care of.
Thanks, Mom. Me too.
Don't leave your loved ones with your debt. Call USA Family Protection at 800-782-2317 and get up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses. There's no medical exam, just a few health questions, and you can be approved right over the phone. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. Call 800-782-2317. There's no hidden fees and no waiting periods to get covered. Call 800-782-2317. There's no obligation. Call 800-782-2317.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services. Breaking news for anyone who spent time at Camp Lejeune before 1988. President Biden has signed the PACT Act. This means you may be entitled to significant compensation from the federal government. If you or a family member spent time at Camp Lejeune, you consumed toxic water known to cause serious health issues, injuries, and even death. A special hotline has been established. Call now for a free case evaluation. Just call 800-793-0837 now. Even if you've been turned down in the past, this new legislation allows you to refile a claim. This will not affect your eligibility for VA disability benefits. These are benefits you earned and deserve. We encourage anyone who spent time at Camp Lejeune to file a claim. Call now to see if you or loved ones qualify for significant compensation from the federal government. Don't wait. Just call 800-793-0837 now. That's 800-793-0837.
At this hour, we're following new developments in two legal battles involving President Biden and former President Trump. First, the case involving President Biden. The chairman of the House Oversight Committee wants to hold FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress. Kentucky Republican Congressman James Comer is saying the FBI has refused to turn over an unclassified form he says shows, quote, an alleged criminal scheme between the president and a foreign national. Now, the FBI responded it will work with the committee in good faith, but also wants to maintain confidentiality and protect national security interests. Comer and the FBI director might be speaking by phone later today. Now, former President Trump, in the meantime, closely watching new developments in two ongoing cases against him. A hush-money probe led by Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, as well as a special counsel investigation helmed by Jack Smith. In New York City, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg wants to prevent the former president's lawyers from moving his trial from state court to federal court. Bragg has been filing court documents to block the move. Trump is claiming the prosecution is politically motivated. He believes he would get more favorable treatment in federal court. The Manhattan DA is saying there's no legal rationale for that. In the meantime, the federal investigation into Trump's handling of classified documents is now focusing on a Mar-a-Lago employee. Surveillance video showing the employee moving boxes into a storage room the day before the FBI searched Mar-a-Lago last August. According to the Washington Post, special counsel Jack Smith has been looking at whether that person or anyone else has been obstructing justice. Investigators have also reportedly asked the employee about conversations that he had with an IT specialist regarding how long security video is stored in the system. In other news right now, two sources familiar with planning have confirmed to Scripps News that former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie will be announcing a run for the White House next week. And he'll be doing so during a town hall in New Hampshire, the site of the first U.S. presidential primary. Christie has been publicly criticizing former President Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He's been saying that he would run if he felt that he could win. Christie ran for president in 2016, but he bowed out early and then endorsed Trump. Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis has a series of appearances scheduled in Iowa today. He's presenting himself as the best alternative to former President Trump for GOP voters. This morning, DeSantis was talking about the country's debt ceiling crisis, chiding Trump in the process.
Are you leading from the front, or are you waiting for polls to tell you what position to take? I led from the front on this. I reviewed the deal. I spoke with people I trusted, and I put out a statement saying where I stand on it, and I didn't need to put my finger in the wind.
Now, the DeSantis campaign moves on to New Hampshire tomorrow and then South Carolina on Friday. All three states are hosting early primaries or caucuses. Now, the DeSantis campaign has been the focus of a Federal Election Commission complaint. A watchdog group has been alleging that $80 million that he raised through a state political committee has been moved to his presidential campaign, and it's now questioning the legality. Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, the search is now on for three gunmen wanted in connection with a shooting at a busy Florida beach, and jury selection begins in the trial of a former Florida deputy facing criminal charges for failing to confront the Parkland High School gunman. We'll have the details for you. And we'd like to remind you to follow us at Scripps News on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. We'll be right back.
This is an important message for anyone and everyone on or eligible for Medicare. If Medicare is important to you, then you need to hear this message because Medicare benefits matter to millions of Americans. Did you know Medicare has different parts, including Medicare Part A and Part B, often called Original Medicare? And then there's Medicare Part C, representing Medicare Advantage plans, and Part D for prescription drug coverage. Call 800-912-2786 now for your free Medicare coverage checkup. We can look up your plan and see if you're missing out on a plan with extra benefits or if your income qualifies you to reduce costs on your prescription medications. Did you know there are different enrollment periods, like the Medicare annual enrollment period, when beneficiaries can enroll in or change coverage? But there are also certain conditions or qualifications that may allow you to qualify for a special enrollment period any time of the year. So call the number on your screen now for your free Medicare coverage checkup. This is a free service that you can call at absolutely no cost to you.
I'm on Medicare. I called to see if my income qualified for lower prescription medication costs. The friendly agent was very knowledgeable, and I found out I qualified for a special enrollment period, so I'm so glad I called.
We can look up your plan and see if you are missing out on a plan with extra benefits. We can also check to see if your income qualifies you to reduce the cost of your prescription medications. And we can even tell you if you qualify for a special enrollment period. It's your free Medicare coverage checkup at absolutely no cost to you. Just call 800-912-2786 and you can speak with a licensed agent who can check up on your plan and answer your questions. The Medicare Benefits and Questions line is open, and anyone on or eligible for Medicare can call. The call and Medicare coverage checkup is free with no obligation. Call now. We love talking to people with Medicare, and the call is free. Just call 800-912-2786. 800-912-2786.
Attention all business owners. If you had W-2 employees during the COVID-19 pandemic, you may be entitled to up to $26,000 per employee with the Employee Retention Tax Credit. The deadline to file your claims is approaching. Call now to see if your business qualifies. This approved payroll tax refund program from the U.S. Treasury Department is set up to reward business owners who kept employees on payroll during the pandemic. There is no limit on the amount of funding. Plus, you can get access to your cash in a matter of weeks. You want a trusted partner who understands the IRS guidelines. ERC experts are standing by to help your business claim your COVID refund. You may be entitled to up to $26,000 per employee. This quick and easy call can get your business the money it deserves. Don't miss the deadline to file your claims. Just call 800-360-1106. That's 800-360-1106.
Wendy only met Marco 8 days ago while searching for freelance web developers on Fiverr. But the incredible website he delivered made him an invaluable member of the team. Expand your team with a Fiverr freelancer.
Local, national, and worldwide headlines. Breaking down the day's biggest stories with live reporting from around the globe.
I'm Del Walters, and this is The Debrief.
Live tonight, starting at 6/5 Central, only on Scripps News.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. Great to see you today. Thank you so much for spending some time with us on this Wednesday. Time now to get up to speed on the biggest stories that we're tracking for you right now. Giving you a live look at Capitol Hill, the House set to vote tonight on a measure to push the debt ceiling crisis 2 years down the road. The bill is pledging to cut some spending and would prevent the U.S. from defaulting on its debt obligations. However, there are Republicans and some Democrats who are saying that they have problems with it. Some Republicans are threatening McCarthy's job. The U.S. military is saying a mid-air encounter between a Chinese fighter jet and American reconnaissance plane was unnecessary and aggressive. The U.S. says footage shows the Chinese jet flying in front of the American plane. The move created turbulence that was a challenge for the pilot to navigate. And the U.S. is preparing to send an additional $300 million in aid to Ukraine. The package includes munitions that can be attached to drones, Patriot missiles, and rocket systems. The U.S. has authorized more than $37 billion in weapons and equipment for Ukraine since Russian troops invaded. I want to get you now to Florida, where we have been listening to the 911 calls from the Memorial Day shooting on Hollywood Beach. 9 people were injured, including a 1-year-old baby. Police still searching for 3 suspects connected to the shooting. Witnesses are saying that someone fired shots after a group of people had a physical altercation on the boardwalk there.
It's Hollywood Beach Theater. Was a shooting.
Okay, what's the address?
I have no idea. This is Hollywood Beach Theater, right here on the strip.
You're on the Broadwalk at the band show?
Yes. The shooting. I think somebody got hit. Yeah, I think somebody did get hit.
How long ago did this happen?
Just right now, like 30 seconds ago. Somebody shot.
Authorities say they arrested 2 people who both face gun charges. Authorities also recovered 5 guns. 2 of them had been reported stolen. Now, the Hollywood Beach shooting is a stark reminder of our country's endless cycle of gun violence. And just this year alone, the Gun Violence Archive has recorded at least 264 shootings with 4 or more victims. People are now calling on lawmakers to push for stricter gun laws. Vanessa Areza with Scripps News Tampa digs deeper into the issue and explores how families are now learning to live with it.
A mundane task like making iced coffee in the kitchen may not be a moment to cherish, but for Kimberly Walker, she is enjoying every minute minute with her kids.
Through all this, I definitely learned that life is precious and you can't take any time for granted.
On December 6th of 2019, her perspective changed. 3 people were killed at Pensacola's Naval Air Base. One of them was 19-year-old Muhammad Haytham, or Mo, as Walker and her family called him. He was her son's best friend and a friend of the family. Mo's death has taken its toll that has spanned years.
Definitely trauma, each of us, from in how we found out. We all have pain associated with it, or trauma associated with, like I said, I feel almost like I don't even have the right to say that because of thinking of his family, because if my pain and my children's pain and the impact on us is so significant, I can't even imagine their grief and pain.
Dr. Joseph Saccharin with Johns Hopkins understands that. As a trauma surgeon, he has seen the impact of gun violence right in front of him and to him. At the age of 17, he was shot in the throat with a .38 caliber bullet.
I had a ruptured windpipe. I had an injury to the big blood vessel in my neck. I had a paralyzed vocal cord. So a pretty significant injury that, not everyone survived.
That moment pushed him to pursue medicine, but now he says the hardest part of his profession isn't treating the shooting victims, but rather the trauma after.
The worst part of my job is having to walk into those waiting rooms and to explain to those moms and dads that their child that left that morning is never coming home again. And Vanessa, every time I do that, a piece of me dies.
As a society, Dr. Saccharin says we've become somewhat numb to mass shootings, calling it a complex public health problem.
No one person or one organization is going to solve this problem. It requires a multidisciplinary approach that cuts across sectors.
People are scared, justifiably.
The first way to battle the problem, Natasha Pierre says, is to start talking. As a mental health educator, she has seen the mental toll shootings across the country has taken on our society, herself included.
I seldom go to the grocery store. For me, I would always go to the grocery store.
We are a society, Pierre says, where shootings are affecting all of us, and we're pretending not to know, or we feel guilty when it's not our loved one who has been killed. She says what we need to remember is we are all human.
It's hard for everyone in different ways, and so that's why I say we need compassion. I live for the day where we no longer have to say, you never know what someone's going through. Just take it as a default, that everyone is going through something, whether you can see it or not.
Pierre recommends finding a support group, and if you don't want to talk, that is okay. She says, just listen.
When you see that there's other people just like you, it kind of opens you up. You hear their coping strategies. You hear what they're doing to get through. And it allows for an opportunity for you to begin to create a strategy to deal with everything that you're going through.
That strategy has helped the Walkers.
I think we definitely don't talk enough about the mental toll of people afterwards, whether it's people who were in the shooting or people like myself who were not directly in it. It's important to have people still sharing their experience, sharing how they're feeling, and how to cope with that and how to experience life afterwards.
I'm Vanessa Ariza for Scripps News.
Jury selection is underway in the case of the former Florida deputy who failed to confront the Parkland school shooter. Prosecutors accused Scott Peterson of staying outside while the shooter was inside Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Peterson claims he didn't know where the shots were coming from. His attorney says that he had no legal obligation to confront the shooter. He is facing 7 counts of felony neglect for failing to act. The gunman killed 17 people in that 2018 shooting. And the man suspected of killing a New Jersey councilwoman is now behind bars. He's been charged with first-degree murder. Authorities in Virginia arrested Rashid Bynum Tuesday morning. They say that he shot 30-year-old Eunice Dwumfor back in February. She served on the council in Sayreville, about 30 minutes south of Newark. Prosecutors say that the two knew each other through church, though a motive is still unclear for the killing. Also in Virginia, a survivor of the Walmart shooting has refiled her $50 million lawsuit against the retail giant. Breonna Taylor is claiming that the shooting last November was a personal attack against her. Tyler says that she was almost shot but was able to escape the store. 6 others were killed. Brendan Ponton with Scripps News Norfolk has more now on Tyler's new complaint and Walmart's response.
The 14-page newly refiled lawsuit once again seeks $50 million for Breonna Tyler, an employee who was there the night of the November 2022 shooting. Tyler narrowly escaped, but 6 of her coworkers were killed in the shooting. The lawsuit says Walmart was negligent in keeping the gunman, Andre Bing, employed despite previous issues with his behavior. Shortly after it happened, Tyler spoke about her encounter with Bing.
I looked up and my manager turned around and he just opened fire on everybody in the break room. And it is by the grace of God that a bullet missed me.
Tyler filed suit late last year, but last month a judge almost threw out the case, saying Tyler's attorney had to prove it was a personal attack. In the updated lawsuit, the allegations contain more specifics to try and prove that. The gunman, it says, pointed the gun at Tyler and attempted to shoot her, but missed. It also says Bing stopped chasing a different employee to chase after Tyler, and the lawsuit says she was the only one he chased into the retail part of the store. Tyler's attorney declined to comment on the latest filing, but last month said they believe there's surveillance video from inside that would back up these claims.
We know that Ms. Tyler left the break room and that Mr. Bing followed her, shooting at her. And we believe that is a personal attack.
An attorney for Walmart did not respond to a request for comment, but previously the attorneys have argued because the shooting happened at a place of work, employees should be covered under workers' compensation. That would confine the compensation to be limited to medical expenses or lost wages and not damages from a lawsuit. This updated lawsuit will now continue through the courts, now 6 months after the shooting. In Chesapeake, I'm Brendan Ponton for Scripps News.
Officials in Davenport, Iowa have been searching for as many as 5 people who are still missing after a building collapsed last weekend. The back of this apartment building gave way on Sunday, burying several people in the rubble. Firefighters have since rescued several right now, and it includes this woman who was safely pulled from a 4th-floor window Tuesday morning. Rescue crews have been trying to figure out how to keep looking for missing residents without causing any further collapse. They believe that 2 of the 5 people unaccounted for could still be in that building. And a warning from police departments all across the country. Investigators say that crooks are using new technology to improve on some of the oldest tricks in the book. Artificial intelligence has been making it possible for scammers to clone voices. And as Jenna Ray with Scripps News Milwaukee reports, all it takes is a few seconds of a recording to make for a very convincing con.
It's as simple as answering the phone. It sounds like a familiar voice, but is it really someone you know?
What they want to do is they want to get that family member to quickly get emotionally invested in the situation.
The state's Consumer Protection Bureau says it's the decades-old grandparent scam.
One scenario is you have we'll say a grandchild who is on spring break or on vacation somewhere with some friends, and either they maybe got in trouble, and so they suddenly need some bail money.
Previously, a caller pretended to be your loved one, but now artificial intelligence, or AI, is making things even scarier.
So basically, we have these people, scammers, that go online to person's Facebook, Instagram, or TikToks, and they're able to retrieve snippets of videos to capture their voices.
Police say they're using that voice to create any message they want. Shorewood police don't have any reports of this happening, but the State Consumer Protection Bureau has several. We asked the cybersecurity experts at Valor Tech to show us what it sounds like using my voice.
This is how easily someone's voice can be duplicated.
Oh, wow. Pretty close. Valor Tech president Brian Sevener says people need to start protecting themselves.
If you want to have a social media, great, but maybe instead of having it be publicly available, lock it down to people you actually trust.
Experts also recommend having a secret word so family members know if they're getting a fake call.
Setting keywords, setting boundaries for kids, using applications like a Life 360, making sure where they are, watching their communications, watching what they're putting out there, who they're talking to, all go a long ways to protecting your kids.
For the I-Team, I'm Jenna Ray.
These are...
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, these guys put the P in prepared, the T in tough, and the R in ready. The top spellers in the country prepare to face off in tonight's Scripps National Spelling Bee semifinals. We'll have the details for you next.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. Get what you're worth at Worthy.com.
Shopping for Father's Day is hard.
Actually, it's easy.
You never know what to get him.
Just give me steak.
It has to be perfect.
Yep. Dads want steak.
Right now, Omaha Steaks is offering Dad's favorite gift package that includes 4 of our exquisite bacon-wrapped filet mignons, 4 air-chilled boneless chicken breasts, boneless pork chops, jumbo Frank's dessert, and more. All for just $99.99. Save 61%. Order today at omahasteaks.com/TV and you'll get 8 burgers free.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
I can't afford this. Yeah, you can. Who are you? I'm you from the future, and I just got paid.
And I'm Dave. I can get you up to $500 of your future money now.
$500 instantly?
Instantly.
Awesome. And why are we naked?
Oh, after this, you're gonna check into a nudist resort.
They have free Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm, and volleyball.
Cool. Download Dave and get up to $500 instantly. No interest, no credit check.
At Rue La La, feel like $1 million without paying the price. Seize the deals on top names like Valentino, Vince, and more before they're gone. And Rue La La every day to score up to 70% off iconic brands. Shop RueLaLa.com today.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, or photos that are degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe, with over 1 million satisfied customers. Visit legacybox.com.
Municipal bonds don't usually get the media coverage the stock market does. In fact, most people don't find them all that exciting. But if you're looking for the potential for consistent income that's federally tax-free, now is an excellent time to consider municipal bonds from Henyon & Walsh. If you have at least $10,000 to invest, call and talk with one of our bond specialists at 1-800-465-8465. We'll send you our exclusive bond guide, free, with details about how bonds can be an important part of your portfolio. Henyon & Walsh has specialized in fixed income and growth solutions for 30 years and offers high-quality municipal bonds from across the country. They provide the potential for regular income, are federally tax-free, and have historically low risk. Call today to request your free bond guide, 1-800-465-8465. That's 1-800-465-8465.
We want to hear from you. You can call us on our Scripps News viewer hotline toll free. That number on your screen right there, 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Share your comments and your story ideas. So the athletes that you're about to meet have been training all their lives for tonight's big competition. They were deadlifting dictionaries, curling those flashcards, and pressing thesauruses, all so that they could become the strongest, most agile, most accurate spellers in the country. Now, 231 of them, the A-team, if you will be facing off tonight in the semifinal round of the Scripps National Spelling Bee. And the competition is fierce, with challengers from the Bahamas, Canada, and Ghana taking on the U.S. champs. Scripps News correspondent Maya Rodriguez explains the history behind this heated competition.
It's been a marathon 24 hours here, where more than 200 kids took to the stage spelling their hearts out. And now we're down to a fraction of that number. You know, the kids may change from year to year, but some things remain constant for the nearly 100-year-old spelling bee.
Correct.
The joy of winning and the agony of defeat. It all comes with the territory at the Scripps National Spelling Bee.
It's pretty nerve-wracking, but I mean, once you actually spell the word, it's like the weight kind of goes away.
Kids come here with the hope they'll emerge a champion.
Spelling has always been a passion, and being able to compete and do well at it, it's honestly a dream.
A dream that's lived on for nearly 100 years of this competition, with Sabelle Weeks witnessing 25 of those years.
It has changed a lot since then.
Weeks is director of operations here and says some of those changes can be chalked up to technology.
It used to be much more about taking out the 20-pound Merriam-Webster unabridged dictionary and literally going page by page through that. And now it's much more about using Merriam-Webster online and using the internet to research words and be kind of your online word detective.
That's not all that's different. Over the decades, the competition found itself having to get, well, more competitive, just to keep up with each new crop of spellers.
We introduced word meaning rounds a few years ago, so those were not a part of the bee when I first started with the bee. And that's an effort to have the kids learn not only how to spell the word, but how to use it in their lives beyond Bee Week.
And then there is the spell-off, a competition round created after the bee ended up with an 8-way tie back in 2019.
The spell-off is the most noticeable innovation that we've had in the last couple of years. And that's where the spellers have 90 seconds to spell as many words correctly as they possibly can up on stage.
That is nerve-wracking.
It is nerve-wracking to watch them, but it's also amazing to see how they deal with all of that pressure.
Despite what's changed at the B, it remains timeless, nearly a century on.
What remains steadfast is the way the children have their poise and their grace, the way they take to the stage and embrace the competitiveness. Of course, we only have one champion, but we have 231 spellers that are always rooting for each other up until that last moment up on stage.
And that last moment will come on Thursday night. But until then, we have a full day of competition still on tap before finding out who the finalists will be later on tonight. Maya Rodriguez, Scripps News, National Harbor, Maryland.
So this year's Spelling Bee contestants are hoping to make their own mark on history. One competitor representing Ohio took no days off studying for the competition. Check this out. The 7th grader read the dictionary 7 days a week, and he is planning to flex his brain power tonight. Mike Holden with Scripps News Cleveland shows us what it took for him to qualify for the Bee.
Walking the halls of Incarnate Word Academy right here in Parma Heights and heading to class, the buzz is already building around Advit Nishit, whether he realizes it or not.
You're famous now on Google. You got like 3 web pages.
Advit is in his element, hanging out with his classmates and friends. But the ambitious 13-year-old has been quietly working to achieve a goal.
It's been a dream for me to go to the Scripps National Spelling Bees ever since I was in like 3rd grade. So
how many years ago was that?
4 years ago.
Okay.
When you ask him to spell or provide the definition of a word,
XYLOGLYPHY, it's carving wood because the root xyl in Greek means wood.
His skill set is on another level.
There's a word that means really kind or good. It's Elogophytio euhipopoconurius.
Oh my God. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. EELLOGOFUSCIO UHIPOPPOKUNURIOUS.
Sounds correct to me. That was good.
He won his school spelling bee and then took the top prize in the regional bee, ultimately securing one of 231 spots in the Scripps National Spelling Bee in Washington, D.C. Over time, Advit says he fell in love with spelling and learning new words. He's been studying 7 days a week, creating a system that works best for him.
What I prefer doing is studying the common root words, like Latin and Greek root words like hydro, meaning water.
No word is too long, literally.
There's a word that means the fear of long words. Hippopotamus.
I have that right now. I'm experiencing it bad.
Yeah, it's hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia.
Okay. And the secret to Advit's success is a little more old school and traditional. In the form of this. Little heavy, 2,600 plus pages, and it's helped him get this far.
Longtime 2nd grade Incarnate Word Academy teachers and spelling coaches Cheryl Delbane and Jill Roll blindly choose one of the 500,000 some words from this Webster's 3rd New International Dictionary, and the practice begins.
We'll do the Z's. And let's do the last word.
I take direction from Advit because he is very knowledgeable about words.
Advit says he wouldn't be here today without the support of his loving parents and educators, and he's ready to give it his best shot.
This year, I'd like to go to the quarterfinals, maybe in the semifinals.
Say it with confidence.
Yeah.
I'm Mike Holden for Scripps News.
So dozens of spellers have one goal, and that's to bring home the championship trophy. Mike Brookbank and Danita Harris with Scripps News Cleveland introduces us to 2 more contestants who are ready to make a buzz in the semifinals.
Northeast Ohio will be well represented this week at the Scripps National Spelling Bee.
The cities of Hudson and Mentor will be watching closely.
Are you nervous at all about the National Spelling Bee?
I'm a little bit nervous, not too nervous though.
There can be a lot of pressure, but for a lot of kids, it's also a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun for me, but it's also very numb.
Emma Lou is a 7th grader at Hudson Middle School. Tia Geisler is in 4th grade at Orchard Hollow Elementary.
Both of them have one goal: bring home the gold.
I think it's just so amazing. Like, I would have never expected to make it to nationals, but yeah, I'm really excited. So I've never actually watched the National Bee, but I have watched the movie Aquila and the Bee before.
Me too, several times.
While Emma may be good at spelling, it's not what drew her to the competition.
When did you get interested in spelling?
Well, honestly, I feel like I was never extremely interested in spelling. It's more, I just really like writing, and spelling's kind of like a branch off of that.
What's more of a priority to Emma is helping others, fueling her dream of becoming a neurologist.
Tia tells me she loves to draw and loves playing sports. She says her motivation to be the nation's top speller started just last year when she won her school's spelling bee.
I said to my dad that I also wanted to win the 4th grade spelling bee. So after that, we started studying the words of the champions.
Her father playing an integral role in her success, giving Tia an extra incentive for every victory.
We owe her about 5 days of vacation after all the contests that she's won.
We do.
Their support systems is something both Emma and Tia say they're grateful for.
Right after they knew that I make it in, they're all like super like supportive, and they're all congratulating me.
The thing that they did most would probably be encouraging me and saying that I could do it when I believed that I couldn't.
That was Mike Brookbank and Danita Harris reporting for us. You can watch the Scripps National Spelling Bee semifinals tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern on ION and ION Plus. And don't forget to tune into those same channels for the live finals of the Bee at the same time tomorrow. And by the way, Scripps News is a subsidiary of the E.W. Scripps Company, which also runs the Bee on a not-for-profit basis. Well, the FDA has a new warning for certain drugs used to treat diabetes and weight loss. The agency is saying that it doesn't review the safety or the quality of the compounded versions of drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy. The warning comes as the drug's popularity has been skyrocketing as a weight loss option.
Not only do I have concern about access for people for whom it's really indicated, I also have concern with regard to what we've noticed when people have stopped taking these drugs, and that is that their appetite returns with a vengeance, and the weight comes right back. And so are we really trading one addiction for lifelong dependency on something else?
Now, since last year, both Ozempic and Wegovy have been on the FDA drug shortages list. I'm Veronica Cruz. It is now nearly 1 p.m. in Washington. About 2 hours from now, the House is going to be taking up a procedural vote on the debt ceiling. But when that bill hits the full House floor, is it going to pass? We're going to take you inside the furious debate in Washington in the next hour of Scripps News Live. We're back after this.
Attention all seniors. You can now get up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, including your credit card debt, with no medical exam, starting at less than $1 a day.
Oh, honey, your dad and I can't stop talking about this baby that's coming.
We've also been thinking a lot about our future, and no matter what, we want to make sure we aren't leaving you and your family with any of our debts.
Just last week, we read that the price of a funeral can be $8,000 or more.
Wow, Jeff and I definitely would not have the money to pay for that.
And that's just a funeral. But you don't have to worry. We called, and with one phone call, we were eligible for $50,000 for our funeral and final expenses.
Well, that's great, but don't you need to take a medical exam to qualify? You and Mom have some health issues.
No. There's no medical exam, and we were able to get coverage right over the phone.
And our rates can never be increased, our benefits can never be decreased, and our coverage can never be canceled.
I'm so glad you made that call.
Don't leave loved ones with your debt. Call 800-339-7996 now and see if you qualify for up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, starting at less than $1 a day. There's no medical exam, and you can be approved even if you have pre-existing health conditions. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. There's no obligation. Call 800-339-7996 now. There's no paperwork, no hidden fees, and no waiting periods. And you can start coverage right over the phone, starting at less than $1 a day. Call 800-339-7996. That's 800-339-7996. 800-339-7996.
This is Kathy. She's about to see her dentist. She's afraid. Not because of the drill, but because of the bill, a big bill. But Kathy doesn't need to be afraid, and neither do you, thanks to affordable dental insurance from Physicians Mutual Insurance Company. it's easy to get this coverage. Don't believe me? Call or go online for all the details. You could even have this free information kit. This isn't a discount plan or preventive-only coverage. This is real dental insurance. It helps pay for over 400 procedures. That's a lot. I'm talking cleanings, fillings, crowns, bridges, root canals, even dentures. Bottom line, you'll have help paying for routine care and expensive major work. But if you want deductibles, forget it. There aren't any. No annual maximum either. Plus, you can see any dentist you want. Stop fearing the big bill. Start saving at the dentist. Call now or go to sendinfokit.com.
Physicians Mutual, Physicians Mutual.
Surprise Dad this Father's Day with something new. Fracture turns your images into more than a picture. Your photos are custom printed directly on glass to achieve brilliant color and clarity. Visit tryfracture.com and save up to 30% off.
Do you have an idea for a story you would like to see or a comment on our coverage you want to share? We want to hear from you. Call our Scripps News Viewer Hotline at 833-4-SCRIPPS. That's 833-4-SCRIPPS.
Hey there, thank you so much for staying with us on this Wednesday afternoon. It is now 1 p.m. in the East and 10 a.m. out West. Great to see you today. I'm Veronica Cruz. Welcome back to Scripps News Live. And we begin this hour on Capitol Hill, where House lawmakers are getting ready to vote on a bill that could prevent a catastrophic default. In the 3 p.m. Eastern hour, the House will be taking the first of a series of votes on the new debt limit bill. That legislation already passed, and it is the first big hurdle. The House Rules Committee voted to advance the bill to the House floor by a very slim margin, had a final vote of 7-6. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden struck a deal Saturday. Now McCarthy needs help from his colleagues to secure its passage from the House to the Senate. Let's get you right out to congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed, who's live on Capitol Hill for us. So Nate, walk us through today. What are you hearing right now about this bill actually making it through the House?
Well, look, it appears poised to make it through the House of Representatives. In some ways, this is kind of the last big hurdle that this bill needs to clear. Once it makes it through the House of Representatives, it goes on to the Senate. It's widely expected to pass the Senate, although it's not exactly clear how quickly they'll be able to do that. Ultimately, this has a massive win for not only President Biden, but also Speaker McCarthy. For President Biden, it actually increases the availability of some of those SNAP assistance programs to homeless folks and veterans. But however, there are a couple of key things in there that were losses for President Biden, including raising the age for work requirements needed for SNAP benefits for adults without children from age 49 to 54. The biggest highlight of this bill, though, is that it raises the debt limit for the next 2 years or so. It prevents them from having to raise it again until January of 2025, which is a major win for both parties and prevents the possibility of default. It's also worth noting that the Congressional Budget Office, the nonpartisan wing of the U.S. Congress that determines the cost of legislation, yesterday determined that this bill would shave $1.5 trillion off the deficit. That's a major win for Republicans who are looking to decrease the amount of the deficit.
But we know that this bill has angered some lawmakers, specifically Republicans, putting Kevin McCarthy's speakership it's been jeopardizing it somewhat. What would you say about staunch conservatives that have been trying to push for an ouster over the deal? Many are saying that they won't even be voting for the bill. What are you hearing right now?
Right. Well, representatives like Chip Roy, the Republican from Texas, this bill was never for them. This is not necessarily something that hardline Republicans would agree to. It's also not something that possibly further to the left progressives would agree to either. Ultimately, the people who are going to make this bill a success are the members of Congress who represent the center left and center right, who would be able to send this to the president's desk for a signature. Ultimately, though, it did anger a number of conservatives. House Republicans have expressed confidence that Speaker McCarthy's speakership is not in any real danger of being taken away. Take a listen.
House Republicans just concluded a very productive and respectful conference meeting. Members from all across the conference shared their support for this important bill, and they shared their support for Speaker McCarthy's strong and effective leadership. This is a win for the American people and future generations.
Speaker McCarthy also told reporters this morning he does not believe that his speakership is in danger. So far, it does not look like an echo of what happened back in 2011, when you might remember Speaker John Boehner was forced to leave the speakership over an agreement that he struck with then Vice President Biden over the debt ceiling. Ultimately, it doesn't look like this is going to shake up in the same way, though a number of conservatives have floated potentially removing McCarthy or taking a vote to do so. At this point, it just doesn't seem extremely likely.
So, Nate, when or if this bill does pass the House, what is the timeline like in terms of it heading to the Senate? How long will it take for the bill to end up on President Biden's desk?
Well, Veronica, let's take a look at the calendar here. Let's put that up on the screen. Effectively, here is what we are looking at. The House Rules Committee voted on this yesterday. They were able to pass that out of committee. The House of Representatives is expected to vote at some point today. Once the House does so, it then goes to the Senate. The Senate is an interesting institution. It can either pass this extremely quickly, or it could take some time if some members are stalling and preventing swift passage of the debt limit bill. Ultimately, though, it's important to note that the Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, and the Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, have both spoken repeatedly on the Senate floor in support of this bill. It seems likely that this bill will have more than enough support to pass out of the U.S. Senate. Take a listen.
I cannot stress enough that we have no margin for error. Either we proceed quickly and send this bipartisan agreement to the president's desk, or the federal government will default for the first time ever.
The Senate will have an opportunity very soon to pass legislation that reduces federal government spending by $1.5 trillion over the next decade. When this agreement reaches the Senate, I'll be proud to support it without delay.
And anytime you hear the Senate Majority Leader and the Senate Minority Leader both praising a bill, Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, it's a pretty good indication that it will have some of the bipartisan support needed for it to become law. Again, the timing is a major question mark, Veronica, but at this point, once this bill passes in the House of Representatives today, which is expected to do, it goes to the Senate. That from there, it'll be on a glide path to President Biden's desk. Not exactly how sure President Biden will have the bill in hand to sign it, but it does seem like this bill is poised to be a major bipartisan solution to the debt ceiling crisis.
Yeah, not something you see too often, but looking at that calendar, Nate, I mean, they really are getting down to the wire. Nathaniel Reed reporting live from Capitol Hill. Nate, thanks so much. So the new debt bill includes changes to federal food aid, a compromise that includes the Republican request for stricter work requirements for some recipients, and President Biden's request to expand benefits for veterans and those experiencing homelessness. But what exactly are the changes, and how will SNAP recipients be impacted here? Earlier on Morning Rush, Michael J. Wilson, the director for Maryland Hunger Solutions, shared some insight.
If you're a participant in these programs, you should make sure that you're maximizing the benefit that you're eligible for, making sure you're capturing all of your cost, all of your household size, and try to do the best you can. If you're eligible for the WIC program, the Women's, Infants, and Children's Program, which covers women, pregnant women, and women with infants and babies, you should participate in that program as well. And if you need help from a charity, you should accept it. There is nothing, however, nothing that makes the difference that the federal government makes when we provide support for folks who are in poverty, whether they're seniors, whether they're children, whether they're disabled, whether they're low-income folks who are working but still not escaping poverty. That's the role for the federal government. And so there's no easy answer, but we all need to make sure and ask our government to do what they should do.
You understand there's always been a narrative in our country about, people just want their government check. They just want to sit at home and collect government money, don't want to work, and they're lazy, and they're this and they're that, and the horrible term welfare queen years and years ago. That's the narrative for some in our country. But break that down a little bit and maybe explain to folks what you think is not understood about poverty in America.
So thank you for that question. It is so important for us to understand the historical dynamic and the way we look down on poor people in this country. What I want people to understand is that the people who aren't working, And let's discount kids and seniors and the disabled just for a moment. And let's discount the folks who are working, who are the working poor, who are working part-time, but don't get health care and don't get retirement and just struggling the best they can. The people who are not working are having the hardest time, because if you look at the unemployment rate right now, we are doing historically well. The unemployment rate is at historic levels. In fact, for African Americans, it's at the best level since we've been keeping this data. So the notion that there are lazy people who are not working flies in the face of the facts of everything we know. So who's not working? It's probably people who are coming out of incarceration, who have a hard time in the job market in the best of circumstances. It's clearly for folks who are experiencing homelessness, who always have a hard time. It's the people who have other issues, whether they're mental health issues, whether they're drug addiction. The reasons people are not working are really clear. But I'm glad you raised that question, because the mythology that there are lazy people sitting at home collecting checks and just taking it easy is just that. It is a myth, and it exists in people's minds, but it is not the reality, particularly for those of us who are dealing with this at the local level and talking to SNAP recipients and SNAP applicants every day.
And the idea in this country of the working poor is a hard thing to get your head around, because you'll hear people say you shouldn't work 40 hours a week and still be poor in the richest country on earth. And that's, if you get your head around the idea of working poor, you hold down your job, you do your 40 hours, you pay your taxes, and still have a hard time getting dinner on the table. That's a very real dynamic for a lot of folks in our country, and it's tough. Last question before we let you go. What do you think it says either about our country or our politics that there's now this massive bill on the table that's willing to tighten the rules on programs that impact poor folks, but not willing to touch tax loopholes that benefit the wealthy?
I think it's a clear example of how our politics is broken. It's the disconnect between what some elected officials want to focus on as opposed to what's really going on in local communities. If you're talking to local folks, particularly people who are experiencing poverty, and as you said, the working poor, people who are working every day and not able to escape poverty, it's a hard time. And they're not focused on taking money away from other poor people. The truth is, what can we do to make sure that we are capturing and using the assets and the benefits of this country for everyone, not just the very wealthy who always do well? And how do we, it's a clear example of how our politics is broken and how we need to do more to support everybody in our country.
That was Michael J. Wilson, the director for Maryland Hunger Solutions there. Ahead in your next half hour, Scripps News Live, we're going to take a closer look at what could be behind the prices that you're seeing in the grocery store. Douglas Holtz-Eakin, the president of the American Action Forum, will be joining me live at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. That's straight ahead. Well, two sources in the meantime familiar with planning are confirming to Scripps News that former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is going to be announcing a run for the White House next week. He's going to be doing so during a town hall in New Hampshire, the site of the first U.S. presidential primary. Christie has been publicly criticizing former President Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He said that he would run if he felt that he could win. Christie ran for president in 2016, but he bowed out early and then endorsed Trump. Now, in the meantime, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is spending the next 3 days trying to connect with voters. He has campaign stops in 12 cities in 3 states that have early primaries and caucuses. For Saunders with Scripps News Tampa takes us to the kickoff event where one particular person wasn't mentioned.
Instead of a big rally in Florida,
hello, Iowa!
Florida's governor kicked off his presidential campaign in the Hawkeye State Tuesday, starting his 12-city, 4-day, 3-state barnstorm bonanza, offering a vision to revitalize America.
American decline is not inevitable. It is a choice, and we must choose a new direction for our country.
The stump speech pretty standard. He offered promises like shutting down the border while bashing President Joe Biden on the new bipartisan debt limit deal.
Our nation was careening towards bankruptcy before the debt deal, and it will still be careening towards bankruptcy after this debt deal.
What was missing? Direct swings at DeSantis' chief primary rival, the former president. DeSantis never mentioned Donald Trump by name, and political comms experts don't think that can last.
The governor is going to have to be more direct in his criticism. That's the point of a campaign. And the governor cannot essentially win a primary by ignoring essentially the front runner.
DeSantis' super PAC never backed down, certainly not ignoring Trump.
Betrayal. Trump caved to the swamp.
I've signed this omnibus budget bill.
The group launching this new attack ad and keeping up the pressure with a strong ground game, doing more than 40,000 door knocks in Iowa alone and plans to keep going.
We want to duplicate what the governor did in Florida for his own reelect in as many states as we possibly can. And right now, we're targeting about a third of all the states.
Trump, meanwhile, now plans to spend Wednesday and Thursday in Iowa as well. It comes after the former president spent the day blasting out early polling data, still showing him leading by double digits in the primary. And later, his campaign alleged,
"Our great American comeback."
DeSantis plagiarized that line from a Trump State of the Union address. Quote, perhaps the DeSantis communication staff was preoccupied attempting to extinguish the flames of their candidate's announcement.
Thank you.
DeSantis is now set to spend Wednesday in Iowa before jetting off to New Hampshire and South Carolina. Further evidence he's trying to deliver a knockout blow to Trump in the first few states next year. For Saunders, Scripps News.
There's a push to eliminate the stigma around mental health in the Black community. Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, two people are sharing their hopes of helping other Black people who might be struggling and are scared to ask for help. Also, an Arizona mother who lost her son is using her grief to help save lives.
My son, who had a great family unit, who had, great friends, a supportive school system.
She's now joining forces with another mother to help teens find hope in all of the darkness.
Hi, I'm new to Medicare. How do I know if I'm eligible to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan?
Great question, Claudia. If you're on Medicaid, newly eligible for Medicare, losing coverage, or moving, call now to see if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan. Just call 800-263-1798 now.
I'm already on Medicare. Don't all Medicare plans have the same benefits?
No, John, they don't. There are many different plan options from providers like Humana, United, Aetna, Blue Cross, and Cigna, just to name a few, with benefits available to you based on where you live. Our team of licensed insurance agents are standing by to see if you qualify for a plan with additional coverage and benefits. Call the number on your screen to check your eligibility to enroll. Just call 800-263-1798 now.
I didn't know there were plans available in my area with additional benefits.
Yes, Martha, there is. Medicare Advantage plans offer all the benefits of original Medicare, plus additional benefits. And with a Medicare Advantage plan, you have access to a network of doctors and specialists. Call the number on your screen to check your eligibility to enroll. Just call 800-263-1798 now.
I'm on a fixed income, and I want a plan that fits my monthly budget.
Well, Rick, did you know that with original Medicare, there's no limit for what you pay out of pocket for the year? With Medicare Advantage, plans have a yearly limit, and once you reach that limit, you pay nothing. If you're on Medicaid, newly eligible for Medicare, losing coverage, or moving, call now to see if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan, even if you called last year. Just call 800-263-1798 now.
I don't want to worry about any unexpected medical costs. I'm going to call now.
That's great, Linda. There's no obligation to enroll. The call and Medicare benefits review are free. Just call 800-263-1798 now. That's 800-263-1798.
Introducing the most accurate continuous glucose monitor available in America. If you're living with diabetes, this sound may save your life. This new monitor alerts you in real time to potential lows and harmful spikes without painful finger sticks. It's so easy to use, now approved for anyone over the age of 2 and proven to lower your A1C. If you administer insulin, you may qualify for a continuous glucose monitor at no cost to you. Call now. It could save your life. Call 800-791-7283. This new CGM technology immediately eliminates your pain and connects right to your smartphone device. That means no more guessing. It's easy to see your glucose number any time of the day. Call now and get free shipping, plus we'll bill your insurance company for you. Satisfaction guaranteed. Don't wait until it's too late. Take control of your diabetes now. Call 800-791-7283. That's 800-791-7283.
Mental health issues can carry a stigma. A 2020 poll from the Kaiser Family Foundation found 70% of Black Americans believe people seeking help were treated unfairly based on race and ethnicity. Danita Harris with Scripps News Cleveland spoke with an African-American man and a member of the faith community about their experience.
When depression first found me, it wasn't cool to say you were depressed. The stereotypes were different, and so I hid it a long time.
My father's mother was a paranoid schizophrenic. And over the years, I've had to deal with depression and anxiety.
Filmmaker and speaker Mike Berry. Courtney Clayton Jenkins, pastor, South Euclid United Church of Christ. Two people sharing their truth in order to attack the stigma around mental health in the Black community.
So I just put myself out there, vulnerable, transparent, in my authentic truth.
His truth? In 1997, he got paroled after serving time in prison, and he woke up one morning.
Felt very anxious, and that spiraled out of control quickly. In those 60 days, I was suicidal, and I struggled with mental health 25 years. I believed that I was the only person, let alone a man, who felt this way.
Hallelujah. Come on, put your hands together.
Accepting the call to pastor, coupled with personal loss, provoked Pastor Courtney to seek help.
When I became the pastor here, around my second year, there was a series of significant losses in my life, about 4 or 5. That pushed me and the pressure of this job into counseling with my therapist. Therapy taught me to have grace with myself. Therapy has given me the courage to lean in and to understand that I'm not defined by all the neatly checked boxes that society would want to put me in. I still have value. I still matter.
Why is it that we have, or some people have adopted this, you can just pray it away?
Because we box God in. By that I mean that the least abrasive approaches get to the altar and pray. What the church perhaps has not considered is that the reason why depression and anxiety might exist at the levels at which it does within our churches is because in all of our preaching around perfection, perhaps we have aided to people's feelings of inadequacy to move forward.
Barry says attacking the stigma begins with talking to our children about expressing their feelings.
So me, as a 52-year-old man, if I struggle with it and don't know how to express or process, what do I think a 12-year-old is trying to go through, is going through? It's children out here who are putting trauma in a suitcase and carrying that suitcase around with them. And if you are a parent who doesn't understand that, then the child just gonna go through life just putting more trauma in the suitcase, more trauma in the suitcase. People know me, I do 1 minute of motivation every morning. But I try to encourage that it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay there.
In the average African-American home, there's this statement: what happens in this house stays in this house. So when we learn that we don't have to hold these secrets, because where are these secrets held? They're held in our minds and they're held in our hearts. So the way to heal that is to open them up to people who are trained to hold our head and our heart. And we can find the peace, we can find the healing.
There's also a mental health stigma within the military. Many people dealing with anxiety, stress, or PTSD don't seek help, and often that reluctance is difficult to overcome.
I actually see some that they're in denial. They don't want to face the fact that they're experiencing these issues. But then on the other end, many of them have realized that something's not right and they want something done.
If you know a veteran who could use mental health help but won't seek it, you can talk to them. Try to reassure them there is no reason to feel ashamed or weak because they need assistance. New CDC data shows that suicide has been on the rise. It's affecting people of all ages and walks of life. National correspondent Addie Guajardo spoke with an Arizona woman whose world was shattered when her son died by suicide. Now her grief has been saving others.
Their memories captured on camera.
Kind of a jokester, a prankster, a little bit funny.
Moments and milestones.
This one is graduation.
This mother wants to remember forever.
He was excited. I remember it was windy, and he laughed at me because I had to bobby pin his hat on to keep it on that day.
Just weeks after Carson Von Aspen graduated high school in 2018, and right before his 18th birthday, his world went dark.
I just remember saying, he's dead. He's dead.
Tracy struggled to make sense of the phone call that shattered her world.
Just the belief that there was a mistake. There had to be a mistake.
But everything pointed to a painful reality.
He died by suicide on a Tuesday morning.
Tracy, a neurovascular nurse, says her son, a charismatic, caring, and passionate varsity basketball player with plans to join the Army, did not display suicidal signs.
No, nothing.
He left the world without an explanation.
My son, who had a great family unit, who had, great friends, a supportive school system.
Suicide affects people of all ages. A 2022 CDC report shows suicide deaths increased in 2021 by 4%. It's the second leading cause of death among people 10 to 34 years old.
It was pretty close to being me earlier that year.
Rihanna Alexander says she battled depression and anxiety her junior year at Chandler High School in Arizona. The same year, she says 3 students in her school district died by suicide in less than 2 weeks.
I was definitely having suicidal thoughts. I got pretty close to attempting suicide a couple times.
With support from her mom, she got help and graduated this year. A day she once feared she would never live to see.
We are seeing a rise in some mental health symptoms in adolescents, such as anxiety, symptoms of depression.
Natalia Chimbo Andrade, the board chair of education with the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, says the uptick in suicide deaths nationwide is alarming. Tracy says she's accepted she'll never know why her son took his life, but in his honor, she's vowed to help teens find hope.
I think there's definitely been positive changes from a tragic outfall.
Tracy and Rihanna both started nonprofits, Carson's Crusaders and Arizona Students for Mental Health. They're pushing for emotional learning to help teens manage stress, calling for an increase in suicide training and education, and advocating for better mental health to help save lives. A call that can help breathe hope and bring back light into a loved one's life.
He wanted to help people, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Just absolutely heartbreaking, but these women are helping make a difference by sharing their stories. Now, if you or someone you know is having suicidal thoughts, you can call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, that number 988. It's available 24 hours, and help is just a phone call or a text away. Addie Guajardo, Scripps News, Phoenix, Arizona.
Mom, we're so glad you're feeling better. You gave us such a scare.
I know, honey. Me too. But I want you to know I'm at peace with my home going when my time is up. And did I also tell you that I got coverage for my funeral so you and your brother would not have to worry about expenses?
I didn't know you were saving money for your final expenses.
I haven't. I called Open Care, and with one phone call, I was eligible for $30,000 for my funeral and final expenses.
That's wonderful, Mom. But how did you pass your medical exam with your health condition? Oh, that's the best part. No medical exam is needed.
That's right. And my rates can never increase, my benefits will not decrease, and my coverage will never be canceled.
Mom, I'm so glad you called.
You can now get up to $30,000 in life insurance coverage to help pay for your funeral and other final expenses. There's no medical exam, and you can be enrolled with just one phone call. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. Call the number on your screen now and see how a final expense life insurance plan can help you. We don't want to leave our loved ones with debt. The cost of a funeral can be $8,000 or more. A final expense life insurance plan will pay up to $30,000, which can be used for funeral and other final expenses. Call 800-790-5695 now for your free information. You can now get up to $30,000 in life insurance coverage to help pay for your funeral and other final expenses. There's no medical exam, and you can be enrolled with just one phone call. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. Call the number on your screen now and see how a final expense life insurance plan can help you. There's no obligation. Call 800-790-5695. That's 800-790-5695.
Surprise Dad this Father's Day with something new. Fracture turns your images into more than a picture. Your photos are custom printed directly on glass to achieve brilliant color and clarity. Visit tryfracture.com and save up to 30% off.
Curious about trick plays and if ever
that local hero, national champ, now he's home and he's probably the same. Hey guys, am I dreaming or can we actually win this thing?
From every walk of life.
Oh my God.
These are the untold accounts. The voices breaking silence. Join renowned journalists and filmmakers for news stories every week.
I have to help expose that.
Is that a pro-life ethic?
They just don't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense at all.
Scripps News Showcase. Sunday nights at 9/8 Central on Scripps News.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. It's now 30 minutes after the hour. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for being with us on this Wednesday. Let's get you caught up right now on the day's top stories. We're hearing the 911 calls from the Memorial Day shooting on Hollywood Beach, Florida. 9 people were injured, including a 1-year-old baby. Police are still searching for 3 suspects connected to that shooting. Witnesses are saying that someone fired shots after a group of people had a physical altercation on the boardwalk.
It's Hollywood Beach Theater. There was a shooting.
Okay, what's the address?
I have no idea. This is Hollywood Beach Theater, right here on the strip.
You're on the Broadwalk at the band show?
Yes, yes. The shooting, I think somebody got hit. Yeah, I think somebody did get hit.
How long ago did this happen?
Just right now, like 30 seconds ago. Somebody shot.
Authorities say they arrested 2 people who are both facing gun charges. Authorities also recovered 5 guns. 2 of them had been reported stolen. Oklahoma Supreme Court declared 2 abortion laws in the state unconstitutional. One law banned abortions after a fetal heartbeat was detected unless there is a medical emergency. The other prohibited abortion unless it was needed to save a woman's life or if the pregnancy was the result of rape, sexual assault, or incest. Well, the U.S. is about to send another $300 million aid package to Ukraine. It's going to include weaponry that can be used with drones. It's also including munitions that can be launched with Patriot missiles and the high mobility artillery rocket system. The U.S. has now authorized more than $37 billion in weapons and equipment to Ukraine since Russian troops invaded. I want to get back now to the debt limit bill, which is heading to the House floor this afternoon. Now, it needs to pass a vote there and then the Senate before it can be sent to President Biden's desk to be signed into law. All that's going to have to happen by Monday in order for the U.S. to avoid a first ever default. White House correspondent Haley Bull is joining us now from the White House. So, Haley, how confident is the White House and the Biden administration about all that's happening over the next few days?
Veronica, the focus is on getting this bill to President Biden's desk, but the administration is expressing confidence. White House officials took part in today's Democratic caucus meeting. Their message focused on educating members and highlighting their belief that this bill protects the administration's key priorities. Leader Jeffries called it a clear-eyed, comprehensive discussion, noting he will support this legislation. The White House has pointed to this bill avoiding default, protecting social safety net programs and the economic priorities that the president has laid out in his agenda. We know since this agreement was reached between Biden and McCarthy, both the president and other White House officials have been talking with members, their staff, leadership from both parties, holding briefings. Administration officials have said that they believe it's a good deal and a compromise. While there have been concerns raised from some Republicans and some progressive Democrats, administration officials have really expressed confidence that this bill will make it to President Biden's desk. Listen.
Ultimately, this is the deal that the president and the speaker reached. We think it's a fair deal that protects the interests of both Democrats and Republicans. We don't expect there to be unanimous support. It's very hard for anything in this world to get unanimous support, but we think ultimately the votes are going to be there in both the House and the Senate to get this to the president's desk. And I think once we put this behind us, we can get back to the good work.
Now, this bill would suspend the debt limit into 2025, past that 2024 election cycle, and essentially keep spending levels about flat. Now, when we look at the specifics of this, when we look at those social safety net programs, it does expand work requirements for food assistance, but also expands some of the exemptions for veterans, those who are homeless, and foster youth who have aged out of the system. It rolls back some of the IRS funding designated over the next 10 years, as well as unspent COVID-19 money. Notably, it also includes permitting reform, which is something the administration has pointed to being an issue they're looking to pursue further going forward. Now, the Congressional Budget Office is out with their estimates of this bill now, noting they believe it would reduce the deficit by $1.5 trillion over a 10-year period. Veronica.
All right, Haley Bull reporting live from the White House with the latest. Haley, thank you so much. So we know the government has been working to lower inflation with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act and the Federal Reserve raising interest rates now for almost a year. And now this new debt ceiling bill might help bring costs down, but prices remain high just about everywhere you look. I mean, food prices rose 7.7% over the last year, and then oil companies made $200 billion in profits. Airfare jumped 2.7% last month. Now, the grocery store prices for several food staples, margarine, eggs, flour, you name it, they've also been skyrocketing. But it isn't just food that's been high. Remember those record high gas prices at the pump last summer? Yeah, last year, Shell, Chevron, Total Energies, they all profited more than $30 billion. Take a look at that. ExxonMobil, all the way to the right of your screen, they raked in record profits, pocketing more than $59 billion. So with all the efforts being made to bring inflation down, why are prices still so high? Douglas Holtz-Aiken joins me now live. He's the president of the American Action Forum, a policy research institute. Douglas, thank you so much for joining me. What is behind the rise in consumer prices? I mean, should we still be blaming supply chain issues? Is there an element of price gouging?
I think the bigger element is just a very strong economy. We saw at the roots of this inflation both a Federal Reserve that stepped on the monetary gas all through 2021 and didn't start turning the corner until 2022. We saw a big overstimulus of the U.S. economy with the American Rescue Plan. And since then, we have yet to see the spending really slow down. We got new numbers last week on Friday that showed that personal consumption expenditures, household spending, the American consumer, rising at an annualized rate of 6%. That's very strong real spending growth. We need something closer to 2 or 3% to get inflation under control. And so in an economy that continues to have a hot labor market where wages go up, and we had another strong labor market report today, but spending continues to grow, it's hard to get prices to come down. So, the Fed has been leaning hard with relatively little success. Its preferred measure of inflation a year ago was 4.9%. After a year of interest rate hikes and leaning against the inflation, it's down to 4.5%. It's not a lot of progress.
So you're saying the economy has been strong. We're seeing unemployment at a record low. It's 3.4%. Why have economists been saying that there's a recession coming? Why is corporate America saying there is a recession coming?
Most recessions in the U.S. start with a decline in business spending. We're focused a lot on the consumer because that was what happened in the pandemic. But every recession prior to that, after World War II, starts with a downturn in business spending, in particular, purchases of big durable goods, building factories, expanding. And we saw real weakness in that sector over last year. So I think that's been the concern of most people looking at the outlook for the economy. You have businesses that are pulling back already. The Federal Reserve is making it much more expensive to borrow to finance big projects so as rates go up. And that combination usually leads them to cut back. We start to get a little downturn. Then households get cautious and it snowballs somewhat. That's been my expectation in the second half of this year. It's been, I think, the expectation of most economists. But it's not here yet, that's for sure. The data continue to be very strong, and we're halfway through the year.
Yeah, you're right. All the economic data that continues to come out has looked really good. Yeah. And to your point, companies have been pulling back. We have been seeing layoffs, but still we're seeing record profits being reported. Are companies padding their bottom lines? Take a look at some of these numbers, Douglas. These are from last year, Q1, starting with the food companies. Look at that. Cal-Maine Foods, whose products include Egglands, Land O'Lakes, Farmhouse, they saw a 718% increase in their profits. Kraft Heinz saw an increase in profits of 448%. Gas companies, they're still seeing record profits. We know Exxon pulled a record number in Q1, $11.43 billion. Total Energy, Chevron, Shell, all also saw major profits in the first quarter. So in this instance, what do you make of the Fed's handling of monetary policy? I mean, are they going about this all wrong? Do you think that Powell has this under control? Because it seems to me the only tool that he has to fight inflation is to raise interest rates. But why are prices still so high for consumers?
Well, certainly the only tool they have is a very blunt tool, which is to raise rates, and that has different impacts across the economy. They've been very successful in some regards. We used to have a lot of goods price inflation, getting things from across supply chains across the ocean, things like that. Goods price inflation is relatively under control. It's the services, and in particular, shelter inflation that has really been very tough to knock down. And so the Fed continues to raise rates because that's the tool that it has. And not every part of the economy is prospering like the sort of volatile food and energy sectors. The housing sector is in a recession, no way around that. We've seen massive layoffs in the tech sector. It overbuilt during the pandemic. It's not doing all that well. So when you look at the economy as a whole, it's not all just big profits. That's in certain sectors. And it's not all a case of Fed failure. It's been successful in some regards. It's just not across the board success yet. And Chairman Powell warned everyone at the outset that it would take years, not months or quarters, but years to get inflation back to the 2% target. They're now aiming for roughly 2025 as the year we see 2% again. That's a long time. And in between, households do continue to have real trouble with these costs. Food, energy, and shelter, those are the 50% of the typical family budget, are still rising at over 6% a year. So, you fill up your car, go to the grocery store, go home, you're reminded of the problems that we are faced with this inflation. The Fed has vowed to get it under control, but it's a slow process and a painful one in many regards.
I want to go and just circle back to food and energy prices not really coming down for consumers because we just went over profits. We just looked at what happened last year and we looked at Q1. Now, some of what's happening on Capitol Hill right now, we know that Senator Elizabeth Warren has been unveiling legislation that would force companies essentially to disclose their rationale for charging more for their products. What do you think about legislation around this? More transparency for the consumer, if you will. Is there any way to get this under control so price gouging doesn't happen?
The best solution to high prices is greater supply. And one of my concerns about legislation and regulation is that those are things that every business has to comply with. Often they require armies of lawyers to comply with them, and accountants and auditors, and that makes it harder to start a business. And we want more businesses to enter and take on these high-priced companies so that we get greater competition, we get prices down to consumers. And so there is no a substitute for more competition and better supply. That's what gets rid of high prices. Any other solution will ultimately just take a long time and fail in the end.
But is there really enough competition out there? Because I'm thinking that might be a problem here.
There is a lot of competition. There's this folklore that floats around, certainly Washington, D.C., that somehow in every part of the economy, in every sector, and every market, we've seen massive rises in concentration. That's really not in the data. You really cannot find that story. That's something that gets hoisted as essentially a reason to undertake action, but it's not really true. So if you thought the world was too concentrated in 2000, then you probably think it's too concentrated now, but it's not a lot more concentrated now than then. So we haven't seen a big change.
All right, Douglas Holtz-Aiken with the American Action Forum. Douglas, thank you so much for your time today. Always appreciate the discussion.
Thank you.
Community colleges across the nation seeing an uptick in student enrollment. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, we're going to take a closer look at what's behind the rise. We'll be right back.
I will bless those who bless you.
Here in Israel and across the former Soviet Union, there are thousands of destitute elderly Jews who are alone and in need of basic food. They desperately need your help.
Ramzia is a Holocaust survivor. She keeps saying, my refrigerator is empty. Wow. She's embarrassed to ask for help. Their need, as you can see, is extremely urgent.
Right now, you can give a gift of life of $25. The International Fellowship of Christians and Jews will bring comfort and food to Ramzia and thousands of others.
Ramzia has had such a hard life, and to see the smile.
You can save a life, just like Ramzia.
I'm partnering with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. This trusted ministry is giving Christians like me a way to tangibly bless Jewish people who are in need around the world.
A life-saving $25 gift helps send a volunteer with one urgently needed survival food box. Without your response, their pain and suffering will continue.
For less than $1 a day, you can say, I will bless and comfort the Jewish people. I will save a life today.
Wherever in the world the Jewish people have the greatest need, our spiritual mandate is to feed the hungry and to care for the widows and orphans. Please call or go online now and say, I will bless his people, Israel.
Attention all business owners. If you had W-2 employees during the COVID-19 pandemic, you may be entitled to up to $26,000 per employee with the Employee Retention Tax Credit. The deadline to file your claims is approaching. Call now to see if your business qualifies. This approved payroll tax refund program from the U.S. Treasury Department is set up to reward business owners who kept employees on payroll during the pandemic. There is no upfront cost to see if your company is eligible. Plus, if you don't receive a refund, you pay nothing. You want a trusted partner who understands the IRS guidelines. ERC advisors are standing by to help your business claim your COVID refund. You may be entitled to up to $26,000 per employee. This quick and easy call can get your business the money it deserves. Don't miss the deadline to file your claims. Just call 800-259-3916. That's 800-259-3916.
Create amazing work with Fiverr. All you need is your team and a talented freelancer who will lend a hand and seamlessly join your team from just about anywhere. Expand your team with a Fiverr freelancer.
Sure, you'll teach her how to drive a car, then use Greenlight to power her independence with crash detection with 911 dispatch, family location sharing, and emergency SOS alerts. Invest in your best investment with Greenlight.
Quick reminder, we'd like to hear from you. You can give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline toll-free, 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Share your comments and your story ideas. So recent high school grads aren't immune to the economic anxiety happening in the U.S. If they plan to attend a four-year state university, Education Data Initiative says the average cost, $26,000 a year. But community colleges are a cheaper option. And as Scripps News correspondent Chris Conti explains, that's exactly why they're becoming more and more popular.
Tucked deep in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, far away from any big city, Chuck Lloyd has a front row seat to a nationwide shift in higher education.
But we're seeing a lot more of the upskilling, the adults coming back, career changers.
Lloyd is the president of White Mountains Community College. Total enrollment here, about 700 students from very diverse demographics.
We just had graduation last week, and we graduated a 16-year-old, and we graduated a 64-year-old.
But like many other community college, this small school is filling a critical need for the local economy.
People look to us to offer that workforce training.
Education experts are watching closely as community college enrollment comes back following deep drops during the pandemic. But why?
Personally, I think we need to look at this generation of students a little bit differently. They consume education differently than maybe you or I did, you know.
For some answers, I turned to Martha Perham. She's with the American Association of Community Colleges. Cost, she says, is the biggest factor driving the shift.
But students are really looking at what am I going to get for my money, which is, again, a little bit different than the way we looked at higher education and how it would benefit us.
There are other reasons at play as well. In many rural communities, students are looking to get higher education training while still maintaining a full-time job.
What we're finally starting to see is an uptick that is a recognition of the value that community colleges play.
Students are also looking for training or technical programs that can get them out into the workforce quickly, especially at a time when starting salaries are high.
For so long, there was a phrase in our industry that community colleges were America's best kept secret. And I think the good news is they're no longer a secret, and the secret's out.
Back at White Mountains Community College, another shift in who's enrolling here.
During the emergent phase of burns, the fluid and electrolyte shift.
More and more high school students are taking college courses than ever before.
All as students nationwide look to get the most out of a college degree. Chris Conti, Scripps News.
Still to come, this gifted teenager makes his Scripps National Spelling Bee comeback after placing 5th last year.
Just try my best, go as far as possible, but it would be nice to get back to finals.
After a quick break, he shares his strategy to take home the championship trophy and that $50,000 grand prize.
Hi, I'm Kirk Kaiser, and did you know the average funeral costs around $10,000? And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Don't let that happen. Call right now. And if you're over 50, you can get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance, and your acceptance is guaranteed. That's right. If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Your coverage begins as soon as your application is received. Don't wait until it's too late.
Just call 800-760-7793.
Coverage is guaranteed regardless of your health and cannot be canceled without your approval. Don't leave your family with a huge bill for your funeral. With one fast and easy call, get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance to help cover funeral expenses and credit card debt, and maybe even leave something for your kids and your grandkids. Remember, if you're over 50, you can't be turned down, regardless of your health. There's no medical exam and no health questions. Best of all, your rates start as low as $5 a week, and your rate will never increase. Nothing is more important than family. So don't leave them with a lot of bills to pay when you're gone. Don't leave your family with a lot of bills to pay for your funeral. Call right now. Acceptance is guaranteed. Call right now.
Call now. Call 800-760-7793. That's 800-760-7793.
How does Klein & Spector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein & Spector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein Spector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein Spector.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. Get what you're worth at worthy.com.
Digging deeper into the headlines.
We have some big stories to get to tonight.
Shedding light on groundbreaking investigations and ending your night with something new.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Christian Bryant.
Scripps News Tonight, live tonight, starting at 8/7 Central.
One Scripps National Spelling Bee contestant is trying to bring home a win again. He came close last year, and he's already on the path to success this year. John Franchi with Scripps News Salt Lake City sat down with the elite speller before this year's competition.
This story starts back in 2022.
We're starting things off a little differently tonight because during last night's semifinals, there was a unique twist.
When American Preparatory Academy 8th grader Surya Kapu,
we realized that there was a root in the origin that I asked for, but they didn't give the correct response to it.
Was at the center of that twist.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is unprecedented. Surya has another shot at the finals.
After successful appeal, Surya made the most of his second chance.
Schlager, S-C-H-L-A-G-E-R, Schlager.
That is correct.
Was that super nerve-wracking?
Yeah, for sure. Because it's I was on stage, everyone was looking at me because, this was my second chance and I didn't want to screw it up.
So why did Surya appeal? I mean, what's the big deal about knowing the language of origin of a word? Well, think about spelling a difficult word like putting a puzzle together.
Can you repeat the definition?
You'll always hear Surya asking that question first. That's what gets the puzzle going. Then he'll ask for the origin.
It's probably the most helpful, right? Because, that just completely changes the word.
The puzzle continues to take shape after he asks for the word to be used in a sentence and for alternate pronunciations. With all the pieces in place, that leads to this.
Rubiginous. R-U-B-I-G-I-N-O-U-S. Rubiginous.
That is correct.
It's so hard to just memorize thousands of words, so you really have to use those pieces to help you get there.
Since he doesn't need to spend every hour of the day memorizing words, Surya likes to spend time playing the saxophone, a skill he picked up after earning a black belt in Taekwondo.
The music, it helps me calm down, relax, or when I'm taking breaks.
After finishing tied for 5th place in the B a year ago, that relaxation helped Surya tamp down his excitement for one more chance at a national title.
Just try my best, go as far as possible, but it would be nice to get back to finals.
In South Jordan,
Laccolite.
John Franchi.
L-A-C-C-O-L-I-T-E.
I'm John Franchi, Scripps News.
And Surya now advances to the semifinals. You can watch them tonight at 8 Eastern on ION and ION Plus. And don't forget to tune in for the live finals at the same time tomorrow. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I'm Veronica Cruz. I'll see you back here at 3 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, Lauren Magarino is up next.